live stream and we'll
You can take some portion.
Good morning, everybody. I'm calling this meeting of the Halton Police Board to order for the 30th of June, 2022. Before we get started, I'd like to read a land acknowledgement. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis, from the Anishinaabe, the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. With that, Mr. Committee Secretary, do we have any regrets today?
Not today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Members of the board, any disclosures of pecuniary interest to declare today? I see none in the room, and I do not see any on Zoom. Thank you very much. We do have minutes to confirm from the public minutes from May 24th, as well as the report on the Targeting Traffickers campaign. Can I get somebody to move that? Thank you, Kurt. Seconded by Ingrid. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, errors, or omissions? In the room, on Zoom, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried. We have a very special opportunity to participate in the recognition of some new achievements here at Halton Police, and so I'd like to call upon, who's going to do that? It's going to be you, Deputy Hill. We're going to ask Deputy Hill to present the next portion of this morning's meeting. You guys go up.
Because you didn't write me much doesn't mean you can't be awkward standing beside me. So I have the honor of presenting three of our most new recent promotions. So the first one is promoted to inspector is Raph Skorka. And like I said, you're going to see Raph and Anita both basically wrote nothing because they figured out if I write nothing, they don't have to stand long beside me, but they'll do some ad-libbing here. So Staff Sergeant Raph Skorka began his career with the Halton Regional Police Service in 1999. He currently serves as a staff officer to the Deputy Chief of Operations, so he's Roger's staff officer. He started his career on patrol in Oakville. He's worked in the Intelligence Bureau, Drugs Morality, Internet Child Exploitation, and Collision and Reconstruction. What he did right here is, Raph is a very, very accomplished undercover officer in his past. He's also a very accomplished drug officer, and he's led us through some very significant changes and initiatives in this organization, including most recently helping us go through the pandemic. So he was part of a pandemic control group, so he played a huge part of that. Staff Sergeant Skorka attended Sheridan College, so on security administration. He also studied social science and psychology at the University of Western Ontario. Staff Sergeant Skorka currently serves on the OACP Executive Education Training Subcommittee and is the Vice Chair of the CISO Operating Body Executive. So we'd just like to thank and congratulate Raph Skorka. Thank you. Second up, we have Anita. So also promoted to an inspector is Staff Sergeant Anita Laframboise. Anita began her policing career with the Halton Regional Police Service in 2004 and spent the next 4 years on patrol in Oakville. In 2009, Anita obtained a position in the Drug and Human Trafficking Unit. While assigned to this role, she was an accredited provincial undercover operator and an instructor and a Part 6 ASIAN, which is our wiretap type stuff, which is pretty complicated and a big deal to do. In 2015, she became the sergeant of the unit until she was transferred to the Intelligence Bureau. In 2018, she was promoted to the rank of staff sergeant and reassigned to the Drug and Human Trafficking Unit. While in this rank, she's also been a staff officer for regional operations, and she says it's been the best time of her life working for Deputy Hill. She's currently the manager of the Training Bureau, and as you can see in the corner here, we've got some of her members here to represent her. And you've all seen the amazing work that she's done through our Women's Internal Support Network, and you're going to hear about some more of the work she's done before. So super proud to say congratulations.
And her family's here too, so we're gonna bring them up. Come on over. Come on up. Come on, girls.
Yeah, we're going to go see them.
That's wonderful. Two daughters, that's amazing. So nice. So nice.
You want to sign that?
Amazing. Photo of the year.
And last but not least, Superintendent Subik. Superintendent Subik was born in London, England. After attending university, she was recruited by the Metropolitan Police Service in London and spent 10 years serving as a bobby on the beat, in drug and morality unit, and in the tactical team. She immigrated to Canada in 1999 and started at the Halton Regional Police Service at that time. She didn't really appreciate that I just did the math and pointed out she has basically 37 years of service. Doesn't look it though.
Wow,
Doesn't
thank
look
you.
it. Sue has worked on the road as a constable and as a sergeant has had experience in frauds, child abuse and sexual assault, domestic violence, district response, and community mobilization. As a staff sergeant and in partnership with the president of the Ontario Psychological Association, Sue created then managed the service's internal organizational wellness unit. Sue was the first and was the brains behind the entire thing. As an inspector, Sue commanded the regional community mobilization unit and commanded one district as an acting superintendent. Most recently, Sue was seconded to headquarters to work exclusively on cultural change management pieces, such as authentic structural inclusion, promotional processes, the reintegration of members back to the workplace, and shifting the focus of the service's prevention of and actions to deal with harassment in the workplace. As a district superintendent, Sue is committed to the community, and as a district commander, who will now be the district commander in Burlington, she is committed to her members. So congratulations, Sue.
On behalf of the board, congratulations to all the new promotees and good luck in your new responsibilities. We're proud of you and we know you're going to be great. We do not have any... we have no further presentations, delegations this morning. We do have our consent agenda that will draw to your attention. And on that agenda, there's only one item that's one Halton happening. Members of the board, if you have any questions with respect to Halton happening, I see a hand up from Don on Zoom.
Am I good to
Don?
go? Good to go? Yes, through the chair to one of the deputies, I guess. I was very taken with the comment called Run, Hide, and Fight. And two demonstrations that were put on, one to Siemens Canada, the other to Amazon Canada. And I was wondering if this program was applicable to any of the schools, since there's unfortunately a lot of interest in this in the community because of what's happening in the state side. And if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. And I was hoping to get a response. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Who's going to?
Thank you for the question. And through the chair, this program is designed more for businesses and infrastructures within municipalities. We have separate programming for schools. We do have our lockdown drills. We work in partnership with each of the school boards to ensure that there is clarity on safety measures with those types of pieces. So it's a different program. It's something that's actually been alive in our organization, in our communities for a number of years. It's available to agencies that reach out to us. We do advertise that we do this type of training. And certainly with some of the events that we see globally, especially down in the States, a great opportunity, especially with Amazon and Siemens, to be able to deliver that type of training to their staff.
Could you, thank you very much, Deputy. Could you respond to the number of schools that have had this demonstration, both elementary and secondary in the Halton region?
So our commitment is that every school on an annual basis receives lockdown and we call red gun drill training. So we expose staff and students to the protocols that we would employ upon any type of similar act. So every school does get that training.
Within a 12-month period. Great. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Don. Any further questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. So look for motion to receive the Halton happenings. Thank you, Kurt, seconded by Clark. Thank you very much. Last chance for comments or questions. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're moving on to our discussion items agenda. I should point out, by the way, I guess I should have done this right off the top. You'll notice that the center table on the executive area is empty. The chief is out of the country, and today we have acting Chief Roger Wilkie is with us today. Because that's correct. It's Roger's the acting chief today. Thank you. So just for those maybe watching at home wondering where the chief is, he is taking some well-deserved time off. Okay, so on discussion items 4.1, we have the Halton Happenings audit, which was requested of our CGO. Fred, did you have any opening comments on that?
Not really. We're recommending that it be discontinued and replaced with something a little more appropriate for educating the board and providing it the strategic information it needs.
Okay. So specifically, the replacement would be the annual CSWB, which is Community Safety Wellbeing Program reporting, an annual workshop on risk management, and an annual workshop on service capabilities. Members of the board, comments, questions, debate? We'll start with Navneet, and then Pav, and then Kurt. Navneet, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, I guess I am of the opinion that I think option B would be something that's more, would be more received well better. In terms of option C, option B, I was the member who was originally, I guess, had requested the changes or to review the Halton happenings. And what I really was interested was on the trend analysis of, you know, more on the trends of clearance rates and whatnot to be supported and provided to the membership. And I would probably recommend that we adopt option B, although I understand that it would take some time. But this is something that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nav. Pav, you're up next.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Navneet said most of my comments, but just as a follow-up to her comments, I was wondering how much staff time it would take to prepare option B.
So I know that it took Toronto several years, and I'm going to say over $1 million to create the dashboard that they have. It is a point in time dashboard, and you can see stats and activities across Toronto. It's on their website.
Okay. I mean, yeah, the Halton Happenings is certainly a great read, but the one missing component is all of that data and trend activity and seeing the month-to-month changes. You really have no way of knowing anything unless you go back. And then I just wanted to ask if a quarterly report was considered, and maybe if we did it quarterly, we could add some data information to it as well.
So there is a requirement for other reports. I mean, this report specifically talks about the Halton Happenings things, which is not about big clearance rates or crime rates or trends or anything like that. That's not what you're getting at Halton Happenings.
Right.
That's really the service's performance report, which we have scheduled semi-annually. And I think that's where you'll find the longitudinal, overtime, and comparative data that you're looking for. That's a different report. The option B that's mentioned here would be similar, something like the Halton Happenings, but it's really microdata point in time. That's not the way your governance policies have say that you're going to govern. That is the way Toronto is going for their collection of data. I think that the macro view and a more deliberate articulation of the board's information requirements, as well as the timely reporting of that macro data and its comparative information and the key performance indicators is more in line with what you've been saying for the last 2 years is the direction you want to go. This one's giving you about 1% of the activities that are happening just in that community policing space. While it is interesting, I do not think that it's informing the strategic governance decisions that you're called upon to make. You need a bigger picture, not the option B micromanaged point in time picture, but rather the more comprehensive collated picture in a combination of workshops and reports. Okay, Raj?
Pat, does that answer your question?
No, I appreciate the additional information and the CGO's thoughts on it. Thank you.
Did you have some comments?
To the chair, and just for the board's awareness, the Halton Happenings, again, historically was designed to teach the board about the community safety wellbeing plan, and by identifying key activities of engagement and mobilization of our community, it just demonstrated our commitment to that space. And over the past 7 years, we've grown out of that. I think the importance of understanding risk as an organization and governance. We do have annual and semi-annual and quarterly reports that are designed to inform the board of those risks and trends, and those live outside of the Halton Happenings. So I believe that the recommendation here is that if you'd like to know what's happening on a day-to-day basis with activities and initiatives and programs, you're going to find that on our website, on our social media platforms that anyone has access to. This particular report causes about 15 hours of person work to collate, and it really is a snapshot of about 1% of what we do. And I think we've evolved beyond that as an organization. And I would support this recommendation that we find alternate means to inform the boards so that they can provide effective governance in that risk space.
Thank you, Deputy. Kurt, you're up next, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm delighted to see this recommendation, to tell you the truth, and to know that the audit has been done. I hear what my colleagues are saying, but I actually support recommendation C. I think a dashboard is perhaps something we can look at as we evolve and move along. But I think recommendation C fits more squarely into what others are saying, our strategic approach to functioning as a board, looking forward to our development of strategic plan, performance objectives, et cetera. Reports are semi-annual reports on performance. I think that that's where we have to go to take a more strategic approach. And so I'm very pleased to see the report. I'm happy to move that we adopt it, but my preference is recommendation C.
So your motion is the recommendation contained at the top of the report as well as option C, then, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That's the motion on the floor at the moment. Can I get a seconder for that motion? Second. Thank you for Clark. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, just for the sake of procedure, I know that two of our board members have asked for consideration of option B. In order to achieve that, you'd have to vote against option C if you wish to do that. As an alternative, if you wish, you could approve this recommendation and ask staff to provide further options for a dashboard in the future, including costing and logistics, if that's of interest to you, and that way you get the best of all worlds in this resolution. So that would be an alternative to I guess voting down option C. I see a hand up from now.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I would too.
So to the mover, would that be acceptable to you if we were to add that just as a staff direction to investigate opportunities for a real-time dashboard, including costing and timing?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I don't have any difficulty with this suggestion or recommendation. However, I wouldn't want us to, I'm hoping that it's something that we wouldn't take on as a large project, because I think we've already heard it's $1 million, and I think we have other work that will get us there over time. That would be my take on it.
I think the advice was trial is $1 million, so hopefully it wouldn't be that much here, but thank you for your comments and thank you for accepting that as a friendly amendment. Is there further discussion? Mr. Chair? Yes.
Just a question, if there is a recommendation to explore a dashboard, we would like some guidance from the board as to what that dashboard would contain, because there are so many data points, and if we want to stick to the governance piece, and is it based on risk and trends of stats, we are bound by Stats Canada and when we receive that information, so it may not be real time. So I think we would need some clarity on what that looks like, otherwise we wouldn't be able to provide a true costing because of this, we don't know the scope.
Kurt.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mr. Chair. I agree with the acting chief's comments. I think that you know we need to take it away and really think about it, because if it's not strategic, the dashboard itself, and it's not dealing with risk, I'm not sure what value it's going to provide. And that's why my preference would be to lead in that direction as we go forward.
I think that was the way I crafted that that refer motion, is to basically send it off, not just for costing, but for practicality, I guess, right. for feasibility. So maybe that's the term, to refer option B back to staff to review both feasibility, I guess, as well as costing. So that can include what you're referring to.
Yeah, I think also, if I may, Mr. Chair, the notion of a strategic approach that is managing risk in some ways, right? Like that kind of thing, and consistent with our strategic direction going forward.
Sure.
I don't know right now that we know what we want in it.
That's why I'm suggesting just to leave it in the broad terms of feasibility. Yeah. And that way, between Fred and the executive, they can explore that a little bit further. For any comments on that as a proposed next step?
I'll take the direction I get. I'm not recommending it in this report because I think I cannot understand how this is furthering your governance strategy. But you know, whatever the board wants.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that the membership has some concerns around the scorecard dashboard option. And what I want to mention is that usually when you have operational data, and that's what over time lends to strategic decisions. And so I think in my view, we would need to have some sort of ongoing data in order for us to provide some strategic decisions and agreements within the board. And that's really why I am interested in this. Thank you.
Acting Chief?
To the Chair, may I suggest that potentially we use board retreat time or another type of venue so that we can then present all our data sets so that you understand what we currently have that's available to the board at any time. Because that might actually mitigate the need for the building of a $1 million dashboard when we have this information available to you. We have monthly snapshots of crime trends, clearances, and so forth, and that might give you the information that you need. It's a lot of information, and you read a lot already. It's just, I think the idea is moving it towards how are we managing risk and your role in governance and we receiving that information. So that might help inform the board on making a decision on what you need, and that might lead us to a decision on whether a dashboard is actually relevant or if we can meet that need somewhere else.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that the motion has enough flexibility that you folks can consult and determine how best to come back with that information. For that matter, even the timing. We didn't assign timing to this. I also just want to be clear. CGO mentioned that Toronto spent $1 million doing it. I don't want to prejudice this automatically by saying we're going to spend $1 million doing this. I don't think that's fair to our colleagues' initiative here. They simply want to explore this as an option. So whether it costs $5 or $1 million is irrelevant at this point. What's relevant is coming back with the information to see if it's viable, practical, and affordable. Fred?
Yeah, I think maybe we might be getting hung up with the term dashboard, which means different things to different people. I suspect there's a lot of common ground in what we feel and know is the required information for the board to make its governance decisions. And that is a continuous project in itself. So we can call it a dashboard for now, but I think it's probably got another name that's more appropriate.
I think that
so it's not point in time stuff that you need, but you do need decision information. There's no doubt about that. Data is huge these days.
I think part of, when you refer to Toronto dashboard, you're all not just talking about a board education component, you're also talking about a public education component.
It is, definitely.
And I think that's where so we shouldn't simply confine this to the notion that this is simply informing the board for governance decisions. It's also informing the public, which is part of course, one of the responsibilities of the board. So anyway, it's a very flexible motion. You guys go back, and so this motion should have passed, and I believe it will. You will have specific direction with respect to Halton happenings. Option C has been suggested, and option B has been put forward as a potential for investigation. And whether it's reported at the governance meeting or a subsequent written report later on, we'll leave that to the staff to achieve that. Is that sufficient with you, Nav, and Pav? Thank you. I'll ask for questions, comments one last time. All in favor of the motion on the floor? Thank you very much. Thank you for the discussion. That was very good. Moving on to 4.2, is Administration of Human Resources. Fred, did you want to frame this? This is our new policy AO.
Yeah, this all has to do with the new legislation on Working for Workers Act 2021 and the need to have policy for civilian employees regarding unplugging from work when off duty. It's a big thing in today's world. It's been in Europe for decades.
And all organizations
with us.
All organizations are dealing with the same policy at the moment. I know we dealt with one in town.
And HR here already has a chief's directive in place, which is congruent with this policy.
Okay. Yes, Ingrid.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we certainly hear a lot about the new legislation, and it's likely quite appropriate that it be implemented, given the world in which we live with technology going 24/7. I only have one minor suggestion under item O, which is redlined. And all I want to suggest that in that last line where we say, so as to be free from the performance of work after working hours. I think what might help us is to change the word after to outside of working hours. Minor suggestion.
Good suggestion, no? Okay. It resolves the conundrum of what comes first, before or after. Okay, so that's a friendly amendment. That's simple. Anything further? Kurt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask the question, does everybody have a defined work shift or period of time? Like, are there instances where there might be some question as to when work is over?
Well, through the chair, this policy applies to all members. However, there are certain exceptions, and the reality is that we have people that are on call, and they are compensated for that, and there's an expectation that they are available. So the answer is yes and no. We do have some people that work 8 to 4. They have confined, very distinct shifts, and others that are just based on their job function. They work different hours.
This policy doesn't get in the road or obviate requirements around on-call or returning for duty when duty compels that.
That's correct.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would you be prepared to move it as amended? So the new policy the amended policy is on the floor. Nav, you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a side comment regarding the policy itself in regards to discrimination, harassment, and sexual harassment cases internally. Could I get an idea of respect to, I guess, how would the board be aware of any of those type of incidents?
I'd have to go back. I got to check that out and get back to you. I don't have an answer.
Fair enough.
Okay.
But it's a good question.
Yeah, I would like to see something in the policy with respect to, elevation to the board with respect to any of the internal issues of that nature. And I don't know whether this policy addresses that. And perhaps maybe that's the one area that I think of as major concern. And I think the board should be very aware of any internal issues. And I don't know whether this policy talks to that. So maybe we should take a look at some of that while we're having an amendment process in place right now. Thank you.
Is it possible that another policy covers that off, or is that what you?
No, but I think I can expand the reporting requirements section to include some things like this, and look at the rest of the provisions and talk with Tracy and see maybe there's some other things that we should insist on being reported as well under this policy.
Would you recommend deferring this or adopting that is and then amending it later?
This is about the 4th time in 3 years that this policy has been before the board with amendments. It's a living document, and so I would adopt this, and
that brings it in compliance with the new legislation and such. So,
and I would add to the motion to address in the policy reporting internal harassment cases and their disposition, so that it's on the action registry.
Is it okay with you, Kurt? Is that okay with you, Kurt, as the mover? Okay. Graham, do you have that? Is that satisfactory to you now?
Yes, thank you.
Further comments or questions on the?
So we do have multiple reports that come back to the board on the on harassment or workplace complaints and the disposition. It's done on an annual basis, and we have made a commitment, obviously, with the board to provide in-camera updates on sensitive workplace matters that would impact the brand of the organization or our members. So that is always done on an ad hoc basis.
I think the idea is to actually have it enshrined within policy. I think that's the goal here. Nobody's suggesting it's not happening. It's just a matter of making sure that our policies reflect our practices. Thank you. Anything further? Did that, you had your hand, did I cover off what you wanted?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. It's about, closing the loop.
Yeah.
And making sure that it's formalized.
Thank you. All in favor of the policy as revised? Oh, I'm sorry.
Seconder on that.
Oh, I didn't get a seconder. Can I get a seconder for that? Thank you, Pav. Is there any further comment or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's approved as amended. Okay, 4.3 is strategic planning. Fred, you want to frame this one for us, please?
So this is essentially brings in the new legislation into the board's strategic planning policy. It doesn't really have a policy on this topic, and yet it is one of the 6 main tasks for a board. So the notable changes in the new legislation is who has to be consulted, and in the development of the plan, and the requirement for the results of those consultations to be reflected in the plan. The legislation does also list a whole bunch of things that need to be addressed. They're not all listed here, because the point is not to repeat the legislation, but it does spell out the interaction between the board staff, and management, and separates the identification of strategic priorities and objectives as a board responsibility, and the development of action plans as a management responsibility.
Thank you. Comments or questions? I don't see any comments or questions. I do want to say that I'm sorry, we do have a comment or question from Pav.
Thank you, Chair. I was just reading through actually the report, and under 6.4 where it's quantitative and qualitative performance objectives, I didn't see anything on the impacts or reporting of evolving technology, just in relation to the significant public safety concerns related to increasing cybersecurity crimes. Cyber-related crimes, sorry. So I'm not sure if now is the appropriate time to voice that, but or if that can be discussed at a different time. But I thought that might want to be a addition to that section.
So 6.4 is actually right out of the legislation.
Okay.
It doesn't mean we can't add other things. And I guess the question is cyber crime something completely different, or is it captured under the other stuff? I don't think there's an answer to that question.
Well, I think it gets covered under 6.4A in general terms.
Yeah, in very general.
Yeah.
You know, we have in camera a presentation on cybersecurity. Yeah. And so, you know, these policies are living documents. We've come from 0 to the 95% solution.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is just because sometimes with cyber crime, it can be very challenging, and the investigations are borderless, and they consume massive resources and a lot of time. So I thought it might be worth, but we can wait for the presentation. That's fine.
I think that we need that information.
Yeah. I echo what Fred has said, that these policies living documents. So once we live with them for a while, we can always make amendments as we see fit. But in my opinion, 6.4A sort of covers off all aspects of both investigative as well as prevention activities. So I think for the moment we're covered, and if we want to change that, as you suggested, Pav, after we have more information, we can certainly revisit it. Policies should never be carved in stone. They need to be flexible to be changed as times change and technology changes, etc. Kurt, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we accept the policy, approve the policy.
Thank you. Ingrid seconding that. Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? Before we vote on it, I just want to say, I want to thank Fred very much, because I know that, and the chief and the executive team, because I know that everybody had a piece of this. I'm very proud of this particular policy, because this is one of our most important policies that we have adopted as part of our governance restructuring. I really think we're moving towards our motto, excellence in governance, with this kind of policy under our belt. So congratulations to Fred and the team for getting this together, and I'll call the vote with that, just make sure that those congratulations aren't premature. All in favor? Guess I should have waited for that part, right? Carried. Okay, good. I don't have to recant anything. Great. So that's carried, and that's our new policy. Congratulations, everybody. We're moving on to 4.4. That's the designated major events policy. Fred, do you want to frame that one for us? I'm Clark.
Well, I'll see if Fred had comments first.
So I would say this is probably the leading events policy in Canada. The only one close is Toronto, which I used as the basis for this. And of course, the author of the Toronto one is the author of the Halton report back in 2010. So this is built on theirs, even though the likelihood of something like an convoy occupation is pretty low here. Still, I think appropriately talks about the board's role in planning and monitoring strategic events, or what we've called here designated major events. And it talks about the interaction between the chief and the board in more succinctly than we've had before. And I would say more succinctly than anybody else has articulated in Canada. So if this is approved, I would ask to share this with colleagues around the country, because I think that we could have to see more of these this weekend, quite frankly, in Canada. If events south of the border are suggesting that the temperature on these things is only going to get hotter, and the board is, of course, liable for everything that police do and don't do, and needs to be plugged in at the appropriate strategic level.
Thank you. Clark, did you have a further comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Fred. I guess the question I was wondering about is, it has about the right to protest lawfully.
Yeah.
Is it also not missing the word peacefully? Is that a word that should be in there as well? Because I really do appreciate the purpose, the way that it is written out there, and it does express that right that we support people doing that. But I just wondered if that word was
lawfully was actually the chief's suggestion. What do you guys think? It should peacefully be in there too.
So semantics maybe, but peaceful is lawful.
Right. Well, that's
yeah.
And our version of peaceful versus someone else may not be the same. I've attended different events where people are told how to protest that would still be lawful, but to someone standing by might see it as not being peaceful.
I would agree. Peaceful is kind of subjective, including
We can hinge on lawful. It gives us some authority.
Yeah.
Peace, and I think that is the right language.
okay. I appreciate that feedback, because I was trying to sort that out in my head. I'll be glad to move this at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair.
So noted. Nav, you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one comment I have is, I guess that's a question around the normal shared services outside. So I did not understand whether there, Fred, is there a reference to that the normal shared services in another document?
Their shared services is woven through the adequacy standard policies.
Mm-hmm.
And in the legislation, each police service has to provide a range of capabilities, either themselves or through a shared service agreement with a contiguous service. In the new legislation, those agreements do not have to be contiguous. So, example would be, public order, right? You have Halton Police has a shared service agreement for public order units with Peel and Waterloo. So we don't have a public order unit here. And so there's also provisions for a balancing of accounts, if you will, at the end of the year. that's more applicable to small services that rely heavily, say, on the OPP, for instance, or a lot of their things. So it is. There's also an awful lot of joint operations, always ongoing, because of course there's no borders on crime, and there's almost like no borders in our communities with in all directions. So there's a certain tempo of normal exchange of resources and support, which is different than that would be required to, say, when we sent officers to Ottawa last winter, which was clearly a designated major event under this definition.
Okay, so I just wanted clarification on the policy with respect to the word normal. I don't know whether it should be restated in terms of approved shared policies or services or agreements or something. So I didn't want the terminology in the clause very vague. And so I think maybe that's something that I want to voice out, if that's going to be very clear when it says something is normal and something is outside normal. Thank you.
Don, you're up, sir.
Yes, through the chair to the acting chief, I just want to pass along some congratulations on a job well done at some of our larger events that we have here in Burlington, in particular, the Sound of Music, which was just a tremendous success with a 75th celebration of our Burlington Teen Tour band. We had the pleasure of having house guests in from Australia, and their resounding comment was, well, how organized it was. And again, with our police presence, and in particular, I like to acknowledge your auxiliary. I always make a point to go up and introduce myself and thank them for their service. It was just outstanding. We're not large concert goers, my family and myself, my wife and I particularly, but that evening they had an overcapacity crowd probably at Spencer Smith Park. I don't want to exaggerate, but there seemed to be thousands and thousands of them. And to my knowledge, that was without incident. So we tip our hats to you, sir, and please pass along our regards and our appreciation to the force. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will pass it on. Thank you. Thanks, Don. Further comments or questions? Fred, did you have any thoughts on Nav's suggestion? Or
yeah, it's a good point. I don't have the answer right now. Again, I'll take that away and have further discussions with the chief when he gets back. If you're good with that, I do think though we should. So I think this is kind of like then take it from 98 to 99 in the quality of the policy, and I can certainly. Whether you put that in motion or not, I will endeavor to provide a more, just like the conversation we had before about peaceful and lawful. And lawfully is easier to find, and I think we can do the same thing with the term normal.
I think we leave it with verbal staff direction, unless anybody disagrees with that. Kurt, did you have, and the motion's already been moved as well, so we're already on the path.
No, I was going to suggest really along the lines of what Fred has said. I mean, we can look at it down the road. There's existing, and then there are other ones that are formed perhaps quickly when there's an emergency event or something happening, right? And I think we need to leave it open and not over-engineer it.
Thanks, Kurt. Thank you. Comments or questions? Okay, I have a mover, which is Clark, as our seconder for this motion. Thank you, Kurt. Any last comments? All in favor? As carried. Once again, a leading edge policy. Thank you for your work on this. Thanks to the team for their assistance. And I certainly do hope you circulate it amongst our colleague agencies across the country. Just to once again demonstrate the quality work that comes out of Halton Service and its board. 4.5, the governance calendar proposed updates.
This is really housekeeping, and it'll be every time we put something new on that has reporting requirements, we're likely to have to update the governance calendar. There's a whole new section now on presentations and workshops, which I hope to more normalized on an annual basis. We have the presentations mapped out, year. And I'd like to see how those all go before we say, you know, which ones we want to see on an annual or biannual basis.
And we have captured at least one that I know of out of regular reporting that I think is in our plan, not our plan, but our outstanding bid schedule, which is on, I believe, on domestic violence that Kurt proposed, was that? Yeah. So that's one that we've already asked to become an annual report.
Okay, I'll go back and check those.
Yeah.
So it's housekeeping, keeping the calendar up to date with the decisions in the whole policy renewal program.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Can I get a motion, please? Thank you, Kurt. Seconded by? Thank you, Ingrid. Last chance for comments. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Well, that was quite a flurry of activity that Fred's had over the past little bit. So thank you for those new policies. Good job. So you can take a breath for 10 minutes.
Yeah. If I may, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to make a comment. When we're inviting people to take cognizance of some of the policies, I think the whole governance policy framework that this board has approved, you know, Fred's been behind it all, obviously. I think it's the whole thing, you know, all of them are interesting, and I would invite others to across the country to take notice of all of them, quite frankly.
I think there's one more. There's an 11th policy we discussed briefly in board only last time. I think as soon as we've done that one, there will be a very comprehensive package that we could definitely showcase.
Great idea, Kurt. Thank you. 4.6 is a donation of a youth patrol car to Mohawk College. Pretty self-explanatory. Thank you. Moved by Clark, seconded by Nav. Thank you very much. Comments, questions?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair. I mean, echoing in my mind is the events of Portapique, Nova Scotia, where a so-called replica police car was used in the commission of a lot of offenses, and I'm suggesting that we need to be certain that this is going to be adequately controlled, this vehicle, and won't be abused. And I just like a comment, if possible, in that regard.
So to the chair, the vehicle has been decommissioned. It will get on site, and then they'll use actually skirters with wheels to move the car around, so it will be immobilized for that reason. Plus, they don't want issues with engine link. It won't be operational or drivable once it lands there and it's positioned in their training facility.
So while the block is still in it, I assume it's not operational. Correct. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kurt. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That's carried. 4.8, Motorola Solutions Limited Tendering of portable radios, LTE in-vehicle routers, support and maintenance. Deputy, you to give us an in-depth technical explanation?
Definitely not. I was just going to mention 4.7. 4.7.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped by that, and that's a really important one. 4.7, accountability mechanism for survivors of sexual assault. And do you want to make a comment on that, sir?
I can respond to that just to give a brief update. We continue to work with our community partners specific to reducing and improving survivor experience and the prevention and the improvement of the police service, really, and how we respond to sexual violence, sexual assault. So this is work that we continue to do. It's an annual report that you see. Our Superintendent Mahar meets with the group on a monthly basis, and we collaborate with them on how to make the services response better. As you can see, we've done some great work with regards to education and the service, a survivors website that we also participated in that's public facing. We will be doing case reviews again soon, which is part of what this group was initially started for, so they can review our files and make sure that we're not slipping on any of the good work we've already gotten through. But it's a great collaboration between all of our community providers.
Thank you, Deputy. Comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. Can I get a motion, please, to receive and review? Thank you, Ingrid. Kurt, thank you very much. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, not Kurt. I apologize, Clark. I don't know why I said.
We did this to confuse you.
Yeah, it's the two C's right across from each other.
It worked, Kurt. I told you it worked.
It's not hard to confuse me this morning. Clark's moved, seconded by Ingrid, right? Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
I moved it.
Oh, did you? Oh, my gosh,
That's
okay.
okay.
Just give me notes, okay? Thank you. I
I'm
apologize.
sure Graham's got it.
And we have a hand up on Zoom, so I'll go to Nav.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to applaud the work. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments, Nav. So I've got this straight now. Ingrid's moving it. Clark is seconding it. All in favor?
I have a comment, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Just to confuse me more. Go ahead.
I think this is great work, no question. I think that, yeah, we should be doing everything that we can to assist, victims of sexual assault. And this goes through the community table or some faction of that, I assume. I'd just like some comment on that. But I'd also like to understand that we're getting great participation from other partners. I mean, I see our essential role as investigating, and I just like to have some assurance that others are contributing to this very important follow-up, and that the majority of the effort is falling on the investigators. I guess that's my interest.
So through the chair, I would say, so we've actually just started so this group did meet with the community safety well-being and the senior leadership team, and they did have participation with that group. This was actually, for the sake of history, was actually initiated by the board to respond to an article of the unfounded occurrences several years ago. So this is actually driven by the community groups. The investigators don't sit at the table, and it's intentional that they don't, so that it can remain objective and it can come from the perspective of not the police, but your other human service advisors, your advocates, who are going to drive change through a different lens than what we're normally used to looking at. So we respond to it, and we've been very open, and our investigators are very open to the change, even though sometimes not everybody loves change. But this is actually driven by that group. To comment about the community safety well-being, recently I just presented to the senior leadership team about intimate partner violence. And we've now formed a action table to look at intimate partner violence, and you would have just seen recently in the news the conclusion of an inquest into 3 murders from several years ago, and through that inquest, one of the big recommendations was that to actually declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. So to your point, we recognize very much that the police cannot be the people that drive everything. We cannot be the only ones in the silo working in this area, and that there's other people that have perspectives and that are more important than others.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We had it moved and seconded. I'll call again for the vote on that. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to go to the highly technical explanation by Deputy Hill on the 4.8. I think 4.8 is generally self-explanatory. I'm open to direct questions.
I'd like to move it.
Thank you. Moved by Kurt. Is there a second to that? Thank you, Clark. Okay, I got to write that time. Last chance for comments or questions. Is there anything the service needs to comment on, or all in favor? Thank you. Operational verbal updates.
I do have one through the chair. Recently, we attended the Ontario Association of Chiefs Police Conference in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we were proud to present on our investments in innovation and technology. We had 2 different presentations. The first was done by our Director of IT, Bill Payne, and his counterpart in Peel from Tony Ventura, regarding our investments in next generation 911 and all the things that we've been doing in the PSBN LTE space. It was received very well. We've had some significant milestones achieved, we're receiving awards, And so it was great to be able to showcase that work and the importance of partnerships. I'm sure Bill can speak to some of those things later on, but we were also able to present on our commitment to electronic notes. And we partnered with the York Regional Police Service to provide a presentation. Of the 48 police services, there's only 3 in the province that have actually gone that route. It is the future. We've been able to connect with our front line to understand those capacities and how we're enhancing the way they do their work. And so we're very proud of those 2 initiatives. And maybe now I'll flip it over to Bill to provide a brief overview of the awards that we just received over in Vienna. Thank you.
Thanks, Acting Chief Wilkie, and through the chair. I had the honor of representing Halton at the Critical Communications World Awards, hosted in Vienna just a week ago, where we were honored to receive an award for Best in Government Collaboration, which is quite an honor for us. This is recognizing the efforts of our PSBN Innovation Alliance, our public safety broadband network, not-for-profit alliance that we set up. We have over 65 members, government agencies and corporate entities associated. Recently, we signed TELUS on as well, our first major carrier. I'll have more of an update for you in upcoming board meetings, but we're very honored to have received this award. And we operated a booth at the conference as well, which was fantastic. We were able to gather quite a bit of additional contacts internationally. August, we'll be hosting the Swedish government here, their public safety and police departments, and deep diving even further into our model as they prepare to do the same. So it's quite an honor for us to be recognized that way on the world stage. Thanks.
I think it's important to bring that to the board because it was you that made this possible in those investments many years ago, and the ROI just continues to grow, and we're very happy with the advancements in that space that impact not only Halton, but on an international stage. Thank you.
So congratulations to the whole team, to you and your team particularly, and to everybody for that great accomplishment. We saw the social media coverage of that. I mean, I certainly was proud. I'm sure the rest of the board members were as well. So well done. And who's the president of that organization now? Chief Nish. Oh yes, that fellow. Halton Board of Red. There we go. Congratulations to Chief Nish for ascending to that role. Anything further? Deputy Hill, anything from you?
Oh, sorry, I do apologize. The document you have on in front of you is called Out of the Shadows. It's a public document. For those that aren't here, I will send you an electronic copy so you can read it. And if you just look at the table of conduct, this was created by the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Organized Crime Committee, which I was the vice chair. And the intent of it is to provide information to the general public, debunking typical myths about crime. A lot of people perceive organized crime through what they see on TV, which is very, very much not true. It talks about the impact of organized crime. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. This is an opportunity for you, but I know there's been interest in how organized crime applies in Halton, and I know we're going to be presenting on that in the future. But I just wanted to give this as a good background, or even on organized crime, motorcycle gangs, street gangs, that type of thing. So it's a good background for you to read.
Debbie, since we're online and broadcasting out to the handful, maybe, hopefully dozens of people watching today, is this document available publicly?
Yes, it is.
I assume that would be at oacp.ca, where there's a giant picture of Chief Nish.
That'd be the one.
That'd be the one. Thank you. Thanks for the update. I'll have a chance to look at it after the meeting. We didn't have a chance to study it in a few minutes between, of course, receiving it. Okay, members of the board, we are at, I believe, let me just flip back to the agenda and wait for the report. We are at the point of receiving our action registry. And Fred, is there anything to discuss on there?
There's a number of items that have been, I would say half of them actually are on this agenda. So we'll be clearing those and adding the new stuff you've put on the list.
It's a living document, as we said about policy, subject to constant change. Members of the board, any comments or questions about the receive? Is there a seconder to receive? Thank you, Kurt. Is comments? All in favor? That's received. Thank you so much. You've had your public correspondence circulated to you electronically. Are there any comments or questions, or anybody wish to discuss any of the items of public correspondence today? I'm not seeing any. Can I get a motion to receive the items of public correspondence? Thank you, Ingrid. How about somebody on Zoom? Would somebody like to second that on Zoom? Can I get a Zoom seconding? Thanks, Nav. All in favor? That's received. Thank you. Members of the board, any new business to come before our board today before we move into closed session? I am not seeing anything. So we will move. I'll look for a motion to move to a session closed to the public for the purposes of discussing confidential items under the legislation. Can I get a motion for that, please? Thank you, Clark. Seconded by. Thank you, Kurt. The C's are moving and seconding again. All in favor? That's carried. We are going to move into that session closed to the public, so that brings to a close our public broadcast of our board meeting for June. For those of you who are watching at home or in your offices, thank you very much for tuning in and for staying on top of what your Halton Police Board is doing. As always, if you have questions or comments, please provide us with the opportunity to answer them. You can reach us through social media or through our website, which you'll find at haltonpoliceboard.ca. Thanks everybody for your participation, and to those who are leaving us in the room, thank you for being here today. And once again, congratulations to those who were promoted and announced at today's board meeting. We look forward to many, many stories of great work in the weeks, months, and years to come. So with that, we are going to move into closed session now, and it is currently 10:10. I'm going to recess the meeting until 10:20. So everybody have a quick break.